this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate two methods for working jogless stripes in the round. As always, if you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. This is a swatch that I'm knitting in the round, and I'm changing colors every 4 rounds. You can see that when I transition from one color to the other, there's a jog at that transition. Now this is because when we knit in the round, we're knitting a spiral. We're not truly knitting rounds that start and end on the same row. When we end a round, it appears to be a row higher than the beginning of that same round. So these are two swatches that I also knit in the round using the same color sequence that I was starting on the unfinished swatch. And in each of these, I used a jogless jog technique for working stripes in the round. And the jogless jog technique is meant to reduce or eliminate that jog at the transition from end of round to beginning of round. I have worked 4 rounds in this green color. You can see 3 green stitches under the needles on this side here, and also 3 stitches of green under the needles over here. So rather than just starting the new color by working the first stitch in the round with this blue color, first I anchor this color in a specific way. This last stitch that I worked in green, I'm going to slip it over to the left needle. And then I'm going to do a yarn over. Now, if you hold the yarn in your left hand when you knit, you can anchor this tail against the needle, tension your yarn like you normally do, and then do a yarn over, and then slip that stitch back. Now, everything's going to be pretty loose right now. You'll be able to tighten things up later, or you can even tighten it up a little bit now. So you want to keep tension on this tail while you get started. And from now, you're going to just knit in the round. Now, if you hold the yarn in your right hand when you knit, then in order to create this yarn over, what you can do is you have the tail create a loop like this so that the tail is underneath, and you just wrap it around the needle right here and then slip that back. And then you have the working yarn right here that you can then use to knit with. So regardless of which method you use of tensioning the yarn, you're going to work all the way around until you get back to this yarn over here. Okay, we are approaching the end of the round, and we can see we're approaching the end of the round because we have that blue yarn over and then the green last stitch of the round. And what you're going to do at this point is work the two of them together. And again, they're going to be loose. You can take the yarn tails and just pull some slack out of that right now. And now you're going to continue working in the round until you have 4 rounds, or however many you need of each color. Because I want to knit stripes of 4 rounds, I'm going to want 3 blue stitches under the needle when I'm finished, and then all of the stitches on the needle will also be blue. I'm going to show one more time how this works. So we've completed all 4 rounds and we're ready to start the beige color. So we're going to slip the last blue color back to the left hand needle, and then we are going to do a yarn over with the new color. So if I hold the yarn in my left hand, I just do a yarn over and then slip that stitch over. If I hold the yarn in my right hand, I create a loop where the working yarn end is above here and the tail is below when I wrap it around the needle here. And that's my yarn over. And then I can move the stitch back, keep the tail down below, and then I can use the working yarn to work the first stitch. And then again, as I near the end of the round, when I hit the yarn over and that's in the tan color along with the last stitch that was blue, I work those 2 stitches together, and then I can pull on the tails to adjust the tension. the reason this trick can work, this yarn over trick can work, is because that yarn over is lying across this last stitch. And when you pull the tail of the blue down, it's going to help pull this last beige stitch down in line with the other one. So you're using the tension on these tails to help control how the stitches lie. The advantage of this particular technique is that you maintain 4 rounds in each color for every single stitch, which some jogless techniques do not do. And you maintain the beginning of the round in the same location as well, which again, some jogless jog techniques do not do. So I just wanted to show you that last stitch of the round that was worked together with the yarn over. You can see behind this blue stitch, you can see that there is a yarn, the tan is coming up at an angle over there, and it's also coming at an angle over here. And the tail is attached right here. So that's what I was talking about, that because it's stretched across there, and when you pull down on that tail and also pull on the tension on the blue, you can create tension without not changing the size of this stitch. You don't want this to be super tiny, but it allows you to pull down on that stitch and bring it into line with the first blue stitch. So what I'm going to do now is 1 round of yellow, and then I'll switch to a 4 round stripe of purple using this other jogless jog technique. So for this technique, you just work the first round in the color. You're not shifting stitches at first in order to do a yarn over. You just start with the first stitch of the round and you begin working in that color. Okay, so now we are finishing this round. So we've worked all of the rounds. And again, whenever you have that color transition, you're going to get some looseness, and you can always pull on the tails and you'll adjust it more when you weave those tails in. Now that you've completed the first round, this is where the jogless jog trick enters into it. What you are going to do essentially is you're going to knit below. You're going to knit through that tan stitch. I find it a little tricky to do that with the yarn tails hanging there. And so what's easiest for me is to lift the right leg of the stitch below the needle and bring it up onto the needle right next to the yellow stitch. And then I knit them together. And again, you can correct the tension after you do that. So I only wanted 1 round of yellow, and that is all I have. I only have yellow stitches on the needles right now. I don't have a yellow stitch under the needle because that yellow stitch was worked together with the stitch below it. So we've kind of got a double-headed stitch. So it's similar to what was going on with the yarn over, but it's a little bit different. I've put a marker on the fabric to show you where the beginning of the round used to be. Now this is the end of the round, and I'm going to begin my purple stripe. And again, when I get to the end of the first round of purple, I'm going to use the jogless technique. Again, this is where the beginning of the round used to be, and it shifted after I did the jogless technique on the yellow. And now I have finished a complete round of purple, and I need to work the jogless technique with the purple yarn. So again, I'm going to lift that leg of yellow up onto the needle, and I'm going to knit them together with the purple. What happens is in that yellow stitch surrounds that purple, and it's just kind of stranded across the back. And then we can continue working on, because again, this is a 4 round purple stripe. I only needed to do yellow with 1 round. For the yarn over jogless jog technique, the beginning of the round and the position of the color change is always the same. For the knit below technique, the color change position shifts to the left every time you change colors. For striped projects without shaping at the sides, like this one, you can treat this shifted location as the new beginning of the round. So every time you change colors, that knit below stitch becomes the new end of the round. This marker is the location of where the cast on ended. So this was the original beginning of the round, and for each color change, that beginning of the round changed until it was way over here, and that's where I began and ended the bind off. But if you look at it, you can see that every single stripe has exactly 4 rounds to it, except for the single stripe of yellow. So for this project, the beginning of the round shifted as the color change shifted. For projects where there is shaping, like the thumb gusset of a mitten, the beginning of the project round will be maintained separately from where the color changes. So in this example here on this mitten, if this is always the location of the beginning of the round, that's going to be maintained so that as you work the shaping for the thumb, you can do it correctly with respect to the beginning of the round. But as the colors change, the location of where you change colors is going to move across the fabric. So you have 2 things to keep track of there. That may be inconvenient for you, or you may not mind doing that. Both options are available, and you may choose a different option in one situation than you would choose in another situation. Each of the methods I demonstrated today allows you to knit stripes in the round without a jog. One of the things I love about knitting is that I have choices when it comes to techniques. It's useful to know multiple methods of getting to the same end point. The method I find more aesthetically pleasing may not be the method you would choose, or you may find one technique easier to remember and execute than the other. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.